All right, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started on these different examples. And in the end, we are trying to find whatever it's telling us to. Most often, it's going to be an indicated value, like a term value, like in the first one, a sub 36. Or we might find the common difference given some information. Or in the case of numbers 13 and 14, we're going to be looking for n. So what term is negative 76? So different pieces of information, different strategies for each one, but we do want to remember for arithmetic sequences to use our formula for our explicit formula. So a sub n equals a sub 1 plus d times n minus 1, the number of steps beyond the first term. That's what d times n minus 1 is. Or the number of steps times d. So, all right, moving to the first one here. They give us the first, they give us d, and because we're looking for 36, we also have n equals 36, which means we have everything we need to find a sub 36. A sub 36 is going to be 29 plus 7 times 35, and we can use our calculator to do all sorts of math on my calculator here. 29 plus 7 times 35. So the value of the 36th term is 274. Let's take a look at the next one. If a sub 22, meaning the 22nd term, is negative 156, and the common difference is negative 9, find the first term. So in this case, you know the outcome is negative 156. You know the first term is just a sub 1, so there's our variable, plus, or in this case, minus 9 times, and we actually have our n value of 22, so this is 21 because it's n minus 1. So in this case, we're just going to do negative 156 equals a sub 1, and we're going to calculate our 9 times 21, which I could do without a calculator here. It's going to be 189, and I'm going to add that to my 156, so I'm going to just take minus 156, and so a sub 1, our first term, is 33. There we go. All right, hide my calculator. All right, keep going. So now if I have the first term and I have the 25th term, the question is, what is our d value? Like what is the step size that took us from 11 to 107 with 25 terms? So in this case, again, I know my outcome is 107. I know that I started at 11. That's a sub 1. I do not know the common difference, but I do know that 24 steps got me to 107, 24 steps beyond the first. So that's n minus 1, because that is your n. So in this case, again, just solving for whatever variable they ask, I'm going to subtract 11. So that's going to give me 96 equals 24d, and so d equals 4. So our common difference is 4. Okay, next one. I have the first term, I have the 18th term, and I need to find the 13th term. Now, there's a few different strategies you could use for this one, and I'm sure some of you are going to come up with your own, and as long as it is mathematically sound, go for it. I'm going to go kind of in a more straightforward way, and it is going to take us 2 steps to get there. We're going to do exactly what we did on number 11, and then we're going to apply that to get to to the 13th term. So we're going to go ahead and start with saying that a negative 199 is the result of starting at 5 and doing some common difference to get me to the 18th term, which is 17 steps. So I'm just going to go ahead and subtract the 105, giving me negative 204 equals 17d, and then I'll take negative 204 divided by 17, and so that tells me that my d is negative 12. Now I'm going to apply that. Now you can do it in a couple different ways. You can apply it to the first term, or you can work backwards from the 18th term to get to the 13th. That's up to you. I'm just going to go, again, a little bit more straightforward. You certainly can have different strategies to do this, and as long as they're mathematically sound, go for it. So I want to find the 13th term starting at 5 using a d value of minus 12, and then I need to take 12 steps to make that happen because it's 12 steps beyond the original to get to the 13th term. So 5 minus 144, and that gives me the 13th term is negative 139. Okay, on to number 13. Number 13 asks us to find out which term. So n is your variable now. N is the variable. So I'm going to put in the other information. I know that the outcome is negative 76. I don't know how I got there or how many steps it took me to get there, but it is negative 76. When you start at negative 21 and you have a minus 5, and then this is your n minus 1. And you want to keep it n minus 1 in this case, whereas the other ones we kind of did the subtraction. I just don't know what my n is. So I'm going to add 21, which is going to give me negative 55 equals negative 5 times n minus 1. So when I divide, I get 11 equals n minus 1, so it looks like n equals 12. So if that's the question. Now, you will find that on the assessments or within other worksheets or maybe on Delta Math or something, it might say what term. And the answer to that question of what term is the 12th term or a sub 12. But if you want to know what n is 12. So just be careful how you're responding to the question, that you're answering it clearly. So it is the 12th term. It is a sub 12, but n equals 12. All right, last one on the front page here. So a sub n is the term. We know the first and we know d, but we don't know n. So very similar to this last one. So we're going to start at 310 as the outcome of beginning at negative 15, adding 13 times n minus 1. So if I add, I get 325 equals 13 times n minus 1. And we'll do our division of 325 divided by 13. And that gives me 25 equals n minus 1. So n equals 26. And that's it. So this is our strategy is working through the arithmetic. Let's take a look at the geometric. So remember to use our geometric formula, which is a sub n would equal a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. The parentheses are going to be important, and also noting your exponent is going to be important. All right, so the first ones are pretty straightforward. You're just going to find a sub 6. So, and then the same thing with, actually a little bit different on number 12 because they give you the second term and not the first term. But we can adjust for that. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start with a sub 6 because that's what I'm looking for, is equal to 240, and then it's going to be negative 2 to the 5th power because that's going to take care of the n minus 1 because my n equals 6. And let's see what we get here. So 240 times, or you can even just use parentheses, negative 2 to the 5th power. And that is a sub 6 equals negative 7680. Awesome. Okay, so let's see how we make an adjustment when they give you the second term. Now, one thing you can do is reverse this and say, well, if the second term already has an r applied, then I can find the first term, which means that the first term was negative 2. So that's one way we can address this. The other way is to think about taking fewer steps to get to the 10th term. So, and that might be a better solution if you have to go back more than just one step to get to A1. Like if I gave you A5 or something, do you want to go back 5 steps or, I mean, technically 4, excuse me, or do you want to maybe think about how many more steps do we need? So if you're thinking about how many more steps you need to go from 2 to 10, well, if you need 9 steps to go from 1 to 10, then you need 8 steps. So that's just another possibility. So, but since we already know what A1 is, it's negative 2, R is 4, and this is being raised to the 9th power because we did end up going back to the first term. So this is going to be a pretty big number, I think. Negative 2 parentheses 4 to the 9th power. I mean, it's not small. Let's go. Negative 524,288. All right. All right, now here we have, like, this is kind of my example, right? If we had the 5th power and I want to go to the 5th term and I want to go to the 11th term, remember, if from 1 to 11 is 10 steps, then what is 5 to 11? it's actually only 5 more steps, right? And so it's kind of one less than that subtraction because you already are starting at the 5th. So keep that in mind. Or you can back up your a to the a5. So if this is 1/4 and you got there by applying a half, then this was a half, and this was 1, and this was 2, and this was 4. And if I just keep applying a half, I will get to 1/4 by that point. But I am actually going to not do that method, so I know we know it, but I'm going to do it the way I was describing and take 5 steps. So I'm going to say the 1/4 is where we're beginning our information, and 1/2, and then it's to the 5th power, because I only need 5 more steps to get to the 11th term. So that's kind of important to think about. So I'm going to have, where'd my calculator go? There it is. So I have 1/4, which you can use as decimals or fractions, 0.5 to the 5th power. And I don't want that, I want a fraction. So I get 1/128. Okay. Similar idea here, you can work backwards and you can get yourself back to a sub 1, or we can think if I'm on the 3rd term and I have to go to the 9th. Now I'm going to write this out again. If I'm on the 3rd term and I want to get to the 9th, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, if you forget all formulas, you can literally do this. Unless, of course, I'm asking you for like the 75th term. So I would need 1 R, another R, another R, another R, another R, and another R. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 R's to get me there. Beyond the 4/9. So 4/9 times negative 1/3 to the, now it's n minus 1. Okay. Oh no, I need to apply 6 steps. Okay. To get past that. So there we are. And this is definitely going to make for a really small denominator. So I just might actually just do 3 to the 6th power and then times 9, because that's what's going to be in my denominator. So I would have a 4 in my numerator, and in my denominator is 6561. Oh, and it's positive, right? Because this would have been positive, this one would be negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Yep, so we're at positive. There we go. Alrighty, next one. All right, here I have the 1st term and the 6th term, and I'm trying to find the 12th term. So we're going to kind of work backwards through this. You can try different methods as well, but I'm just going to go with a bit straightforward here. We're going to have 4, 8, 6 equals, beginning at 2. Since we don't actually know, we do not know our base of R, but I do know that it took n minus 1 or 5 steps to get here. So this one's going to do a little bit more solving because I have to figure out my R value. And to do that, I'm going to start by dividing by 2. So that's going to be 243 equals R to the 5th. And if you want to figure out what number to the 5th power creates 243, you may use the 5th root, or you can raise 243 to the 1/5 power. And it's 3. So R equals 3. Okay, so now in this case, I want you to think about the fact that if this is positive, then the 2nd term, and the 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 term is positive. So if that one, let's just pretend it alternates. No, it can't actually alternate. They'd all have to be positive, so I don't have to consider that there would be a negative involved in this at all. So now that I know my R is 3, let's go back and say to find the 12th term, I'm going to start at 2, and I'm going to go 3 to the 11th power because that's my n minus 1. So now I'm going to do, and this is going to be big, 3 to the 11th power times 2. So you will get some uncomfortably large numbers, perhaps, but just remember you're using exponents. I like really sometimes big ones in this case. Okay, now I'm going to go from the 4th to the 7th, and this is what happens. And what I actually want to do is actually go backwards. So this time I'm going to say, okay, if I have the fourth at 75 halves, and I have the fifth, sixth, seventh, which is negative 75 over 128. First of all, I know that it has to be a negative R value. That seems clear to me because I have, this one would be positive, this one would be positive. So these are negative positions, right? How many R's did it take us to go from 75 halves to negative 75 over 128? Well, it took us 1 R, 2 R, and 3 R. So it took us 3 R's to make that trip, like on to the next one. So if I have 75 halves and I have some R to the third power, do not worry about it being negative right now. It's going to be negative when we do this problem. And the outcome of doing that is negative 75 over 128. Then I need to solve for R first, and then I can backtrack it and apply it backwards to find the second term right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and substitute or divide. Now, negative 75 divided by 128 divided by 75 over 2, which is really just multiplying by the reciprocal, should just give me 1 over 64. Let's see if I did that right. Negative 1 over 64 equals R cubed. Now I want the cube root of this, but really you're just focusing on your denominator because that's what you're really taking the cube root of, so I end up with negative 1 over 4 as my R value. So you could really divide backwards twice because you just, instead of multiplying, you would divide by R to go backwards to the second term. That would work. So again, you could take 75 halves. Woo, let's try that again. 75 halves. And you could just divide by negative 1 quarter. And do it again. Divide by negative 1 quarter. And you end up with 600. And if you're not sure, just keep applying it. Just keep, see if this works. See if you had 75 halves times 0.25, well, negative, right? But times 0.25, and one more time, times 0.25. Obviously, that'd be negative, but if we math enter that one, I get this number, negative, because I didn't include that. And we get it. All right. So that might have been a lot. Go back and watch little parts of it if you need to. Give the class kick a try, and I will see you when you guys return.